All right, welcome to This Explainer. I am incredibly excited to guide you through a topic that is literally right under our noses, yet somehow completely misunderstood by most of us. We're going to be breaking down the absolute key concepts from James Nestor's fascinating book, Breath, The New Science of a Lost Art. So, I want you to just think about the number 25,000 for a second. That is roughly the number of times you perform a very specific, totally automatic action every single day. You take air in and you let it out. Okay, let's dive into this. Because what if I told you that despite doing it 25,000 times a day, every single day, you are probably doing it wrong? I know, it sounds totally crazy, right? But the really startling premise we're exploring today is that modern humans, like as an entire species, have essentially lost the ability to breathe correctly, and it's having massive consequences on our health. Section 1. The hidden breathing epidemic. Now, if we look at how evolution and our modern lifestyles have fundamentally altered our respiratory health, there's this absolutely fascinating connection to our diet. See, for hundreds of thousands of years, our ancestors ate tough, raw foods, food that required a ton of chewing, and all that chewing built strong jaws and wide mouths. But with the rapid industrialization of our food, everything became soft and mushy. Because we just aren't chewing as much anymore, human skull shapes have actually literally altered. Our jaws shrank, our teeth got crooked because there's less space, and crucially, our airways became obstructed. We are structurally different from our ancestors in a way that just makes it physically harder to breathe. And this brilliantly illustrates how modern work habits are making everything so much worse. I mean, have you ever caught yourself holding your breath when you're reading an intense message or just staring at your inbox? Well, that actually has a name. It's called email apnea. Basically, a temporary absence or shallowing of your breath while doing screen work. It keeps our bodies in this continuous, low-grade state of stress, just constantly pumping out cortisol and preventing us from ever truly relaxing. Section 2. Nose versus mouth breathing. Because our airways are smaller and we're constantly stressed out, a lot of us have subconsciously switched how we take in air. Think of it like this. Your nose is your body's brake pedal, and your mouth is the gas pedal. Nose breathing actually engages the parasympathetic nervous system. That's your rest and digest mode. It filters the air, warms it, lowers your blood pressure, and crucially, it produces nitric oxide, which opens up your blood vessels. Mouth breathing, on the flip side, triggers the sympathetic nervous system. Fight or flight, it's linked to sleep apnea, fatigue, periodontal disease, and a higher resting heart rate. Simply put, our mouths just aren't designed to process raw air all day long. To prove just how dangerous mouth breathing really is, the author, James Nestor, put himself through this extreme 10-day experiment at Stanford University. He quite literally had his nose completely plugged up, forcing him to breathe exclusively through his mouth for 10 solid days. The results were genuinely terrifying. His cardiovascular and nasal health metrics completely tanked almost immediately, his blood pressure spiked, he started snoring, and he basically just felt terrible the entire time. So here's your very first actionable lesson, and it is beautifully simple. Keep your mouth closed during the day. Seriously, just shutting your mouth is step 1 to better health. And if you find yourself struggling at night, well, a lot of experts, Nestor included, highly recommend looking into gentle mouth taping while you sleep. It sounds a little weird, but it physically trains your body to enforce healthy nasal breathing. Section 3. The carbon dioxide paradox. Okay, now that we've got the mechanics down, let's talk about the chemistry. Look, we've all been taught that oxygen is the good guy and carbon dioxide is just this bad waste gas we have to get rid of, right? Well, actually, scratch that. It's way more counterintuitive. We absolutely need carbon dioxide. See, our bodies have these neurons called chemoreceptors, and their whole job is to trigger the urge to breathe. But here's the crazy kicker. They don't trigger a breath because you're low on oxygen. They trigger it based on rising carbon dioxide levels. And even wilder, carbon dioxide acts as a doorway. Without enough CO2 in your blood, the oxygen literally gets stuck to your red blood cells and cannot detach to enter your tissues and organs. Which leads us to this incredibly surprising quote from Nestor. He says, "You get more oxygen by breathing slower." Wait, what? It's true. Because we're so often stressed, we tend to overbreathe, blowing off way too much CO2. By simply breathing slower, we build up our tolerance to carbon dioxide. That, in turn, allows oxygen to be delivered way more efficiently to our brains and bodies, and it drops our resting heart rate. And that gives us our next actionable habit. Practice breathing less. By just extending your exhale, you hold on to a little bit more CO2, building up that tolerance. But even better, A long exhale is literally the fastest neurological way to signal safety to your nervous system. It's an absolute game changer for alleviating chronic anxiety. Section 4. Ancient Wisdom, Modern Science. You know what's truly amazing about all this? While modern science is just now mapping out these complex chemical pathways, humanity has actually known about the power of breath for thousands of years. It's kind of marvelous how completely isolated ancient cultures independently figured out breathing techniques that modern pulmonology is only just validating today. Over in ancient India, they developed prana and yogic breathing specifically to balance the nervous system. Meanwhile, Tibetan monks used Tummo meditation to essentially heat their bodies and survive freezing temperatures. And today, modern science looks at these ancient practices and recognizes them as highly distinct, effective ways to consciously control the vagus nerve and hack our autonomic nervous system. Let's move to and see how this builds into one of the most universally beneficial techniques ever discovered, resonant breathing. And it is so simple. You just inhale for 5.5 seconds, and then you exhale for 5.5 seconds. It creates this perfect, steady cycle of exactly 5.5 breaths per minute. Tell you what, let's try it right now. Ready? Inhale, 2, 3, 4, 5.5. Now exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5.5. Honestly, doing this for just a few minutes a day completely syncs up your cardiovascular rhythms and puts you in a profound state of calm. Section 5. Hype versus reality. Now, as with literally any major health trend, it's pretty important we pause and look at the whole picture. On one hand, you have this deeply personal, almost spiritual transformation experienced by the author and lots of other what he calls pulmonauts, people exploring the extreme limits of breath. Nestor himself states, "I felt so completely different, and I do every time I do this breathwork practice. I love that energy." And for a lot of people, these practices really are profoundly life-changing, helping with asthma, anxiety, and severe sleep issues. However, it's just as important we impartially present the critical viewpoint too. Some reviewers and medical professionals point out that while these techniques are absolutely highly effective, they aren't exactly a new science. Take book reviewer D.K. Powell, who noted, "Most are solid facts actually, so solid that they're already well known and out there in the public domain." The main critique here is that these are actually well-documented medical and yogic practices. And while the book packages them up brilliantly for a modern audience, it might slightly overstate them as miraculous cures for severe medical conditions. The general consensus? These techniques absolutely work. They are heavily grounded in biology, but these should be viewed as a really powerful tool for wellness, not necessarily a magic cure-all. Section 6. Master your breath today. So the crucial point is, how do we actually bring all this science, history, and debate together into our everyday lives? Well, the great news is you don't need any expensive gear to radically improve your health. You literally just need to tweak a few habits. So here's your daily checklist. Number 1, breathe strictly through your nose, day and night. Number 2, try to chew more solid, whole foods to give that jaw a workout. Number 3, practice that slow, resonant breathing whenever you start feeling stressed. Number 4, always make sure you exhale fully so you keep your CO2 balance perfectly in check. And finally, number 5, keep a close eye on yourself for that email apnea when you're staring at your screens. We take our breath for granted all the time because, well, it's automatic. But it is truly an invisible superpower sitting right there under our noses. Knowing what you know right now about the incredible hidden mechanics of your lungs, your nervous system, and your jaw, how are you going to take your next breath?